Alright, here we are already on day number 6, our second leg day of the series. We're starting off today with a box squat. So this is basically just the same as a barbell squat that we did in the first video, but you are sitting your entire weight onto a bench or a medium-sized box and squatting back up again. The barbell is placed on the same position as it is for your regular squats, high on top of the upper back, below the neck bone. Your entire body is braced and tight as you hinge your hips back, reaching the glutes back far onto the bench, sitting your entire weight back, not letting the knees even come close to passing over the toes, and standing back up again. In this exercise, your body comes to a complete stop as you sit, so the muscles really relax at that point. So the challenge is to re-engage the glutes, the hamstrings, and quads, explode up off the ground, and push the weight up. In the next exercise, we're doing single leg step-ups. So for this exercise, we're really focusing on the glutes, and the quads also get hit. So I place my foot up onto the step or the bench, whatever you're using, and I pretty much keep it there the whole time. I drive down through the heel of the foot, pushing and engaging my glute, using all of my strength on that side to lift up. I tap my other foot on the bench just for a little bit of balance, and then I come right back down again. I want to keep as much tension on that leg that's on the bench pretty much throughout the entire exercise without giving it too much of a rest at the top or at the bottom. This exercise really gets your heart rate up, but challenge yourself and don't take a rest between the sides. Finish both the right and the left leg, then take a few minutes to catch your breath and go again. Romanian deadlifts. This is seriously one of my favorite ways to work the hamstring because it is such a good extension and stretch of the muscle versus the seated hamstring curl, which we did in the first video, which is a complete contraction of the muscle. The best way to think about this exercise is through an analogy. So with your knees slightly bent, you are picturing there is a $100 bill sticking out of the wall behind you. You are going to reach your hips and your glutes back towards that $100 bill, get an extremely awesome stretch all the way down your hamstring, grab the $100 bill between your glutes, and pull the $100 bill out of the wall, driving your hips and your glutes forward. There should be no flexion and extension in your lower back, and if you feel your lower back starting to fire or get pumped, then you definitely want to stop and reset your form. Leg presses. We're using a leg press plate-loaded machine in this example, but I have no plates on the machine. That's because we're just going over the form, like with everything else in this How to Lift Basics tutorial. So to start, I placed my feet a little bit wider than hip width apart with my toes slightly out, but you're going to see I'm going to change my feet position to show you 3 different positions that you can place your feet on the leg press to hit your legs in 3 different angles. I pretty much place my feet in the center of the platform. You don't want to place them too low because you want to have a really good capability to drive strongly through your heels still. So if you place them too low, you're going to find it's hard to keep your heels down, and mostly you're going to be putting more pressure on your knees. And if you put it too high, you're just not going to have the right placement and tension on the legs. But that really depends upon your height and the length of your legs, so keep that in mind when you find a position. Alright, so now you're going to see I place my feet in a neutral position with my feet straight forward, more like hip width apart, and the third position is straight together, nice and close, but as you notice here, I'm going to bring my knees still slightly apart at the bottom. You never want your knees to push and collapse into each other when you bring your legs down and up. You always want to keep slight pressure onto the outsides of your legs and the outsides of your knees to get really optimal leg engagement. If you notice, I'm only bending my knees into a 90-degree angle before I press my legs up again, and I am again not locking my knees at the top. When you lock your knees at the top of the movement, you do get a rest in your legs, and you could also put a little bit more of an uncomfortable strain on your hamstrings, which you definitely want to avoid. So to keep the legs pushing and keep the tension on the legs the entire time, bring the legs down to a 90-degree angle, And when you press up, don't lock your knees, come up to about 95% and bring it right back down again. Glute thrusters are a really great way to isolate the glutes, but teaching them to engage without the other muscles of the legs taking over is the tricky part. So that's why you see me doing the movement here first without any weight. I'm leaning against a bench, and as I dip my hips down into the floor, I'm actively sticking my glutes down and back, and then I engage from the floor up, squeezing my glutes together as if I'm grabbing that $100 bill out of the floor and pulling it up. When I place the bar over my hips, depending on how much weight you're going to use, you will probably want to put a pad around the bar. I don't have a pad on here right now, but to protect your hips and keep them from getting bruised. Then the movement is the same. You're going to dip your hips down towards the floor. I drive through the entirety of my foot, but mostly through my heel. Engage my glutes, squeeze them together from the bottom, and push them through the top as if I'm trying to push my hips through towards the ceiling. Last exercise in our leg day today is side squat jumps. These are awesome because they're so plyometric, meaning we're jumping and there's a lot of impact in them, so the heart rate gets boosted. But another positive aspect of it is we're moving from side to side. And if you didn't realize it, throughout most of these exercises, we're moving backwards and frontwards. So incorporating a side-to-side movement is another great way to add some functional movement to this trainer. So for this movement, you're going to keep your feet hip-width apart the entire time. So even as you're jumping, you make sure you want to land your feet in that hip-width apart. You don't want to land them too close together. As I squat down, I'm gathering all the energy I can in that squat and exploding up off the floor, driving my hips forward, jumping up as high as I can, but also directing my energy side to side. When I land, I want to make sure I land nice and softly by bending my knees. You'll never see my knees go straight or lock. I'm doing that for injury prevention, also to keep the tension on my legs and not give them a rest. So I'm really challenging myself here. When I land, I squat right back down and then I explode right back up into the next squat. This is one of my favorite movements to end leg day with because it is so cardiovascular challenging. So after a really intense workout, end with a plyometric session and just burn the legs out. Thanks so much for watching Legs Day 2 in my How to Lift Basics trainer. Tomorrow we're getting Day 7 and it's our second back and biceps trainer. Stay tuned.